I was being brought to set in a wheelchair. Like, I couldn't walk that far. So I had to tell everybody because I needed help. You know, I needed someone to help me stand, and I needed someone to help. I needed someone to help me to get there.
When people think about the cast of Married, with Children, they usually remember the outrageous jokes, the constant arguments, and the unforgettable Bundy family chaos. On screen, Al Bundy spent most of his time complaining about life. Kelly Bundy was the carefree teenager who never seemed to take anything seriously, and the entire family thrived on sarcastic humor that pushed television boundaries. But decades after the cameras stopped rolling, a very different story has started to emerge. It's a story that isn't about controversy or scandal. Instead, it's about a relationship that quietly lasted for nearly 40 years, one built on trust, respect, and genuine care. For years, Christina Applegate rarely spoke in detail about what happened behind the scenes during her teenage years on the show. Fans assumed they already knew everything because the cast always appeared close in interviews. But recent conversations have revealed just how much one person influenced her life, both professionally and personally. That person was Ed O'Neill. To millions of viewers, Ed was simply Al Bundy, the grumpy shoe salesman whose sarcastic one-liners became television history. Behind the scenes, however, those who worked on the series described someone completely different from the character audiences watched every week. While Al Bundy often looked like he had given up on life, Ed O'Neill was known for being calm, thoughtful, and deeply protective of the younger members of the cast. When production on Married, with Children began in 1987, Christina Applegate was only 15 years old. She had already appeared in commercials and small television roles, but nothing could have prepared her for the attention that would come with starring in a hit sitcom. Overnight, she became one of the most recognizable teenage actresses in America. The show's success came quickly, but so did the pressure. Kelly Bundy became one of television's most talked-about characters. The role brought Christina enormous popularity, yet it also meant growing up in front of millions of viewers. Every season brought new interviews, magazine covers, and public appearances. For a teenager, that kind of spotlight can be overwhelming. This is where Ed O'Neill's influence became impossible to ignore. Unlike many experienced actors who focused only on their own performances, Ed paid attention to the people around him. Cast members have often described him as someone who naturally stepped into a leadership role without trying to dominate the room. He wasn't loud or attention-seeking. Instead, he earned respect by being consistent. Christina has spoken about how reassuring it was to have someone like Ed on set during those early years. Hollywood can be intimidating for young performers, especially when they're working alongside adults in an industry known for intense schedules and constant public scrutiny. Having someone who genuinely cared about her well-being made an enormous difference. Their relationship developed gradually. At first, Ed simply offered advice whenever Christina asked questions about acting or dealing with the pressures of television. But over time, those conversations became something much more meaningful. Instead of treating her as just another young co-star, he treated her like family. That sense of family became one of the defining features of the Married, with Children cast. Although the scripts were filled with insults and outrageous arguments, life behind the cameras was remarkably different. Long filming days created strong friendships among the actors. Week after week, year after year, they celebrated birthdays together, shared meals between scenes, and supported one another through the ups and downs of life outside the studio. For Christina, those years represented the transition from childhood into adulthood. She learned how television productions worked. She learned how to perform in front of a live audience. She learned how to handle interviews, critics, and the pressures that came with sudden fame. Throughout that journey, Ed remained one of the people she could always count on. Many fans assume that veteran actors automatically mentor younger performers because it's expected. In reality, that's rarely the case. Television productions move quickly, and everyone is usually focused on memorizing lines, rehearsing scenes, and meeting deadlines. Ed didn't have to become Christina's mentor. He chose to. According to interviews given over the years, he often encouraged younger cast members to stay focused on their craft instead of getting distracted by fame. His advice wasn't about becoming a celebrity. It was about becoming a better actor and maintaining perspective in an industry where success can disappear as quickly as it arrives. That advice proved invaluable. As Christina grew older, her confidence as a performer increased dramatically. The nervous teenager who had first walked onto the soundstage slowly transformed into one of the strongest comedic actresses on television. Her timing improved, her performances became sharper, and her chemistry with the rest of the cast felt completely natural. Ed noticed that growth. Rather than feeling threatened by a younger actor receiving more attention, he celebrated her progress. Those who worked on the show have often described the atmosphere as surprisingly supportive, especially considering how competitive Hollywood can sometimes be. What made their relationship unique wasn't dramatic public moments. It was the countless small moments that never appeared in interviews. Simple conversations before filming. Words of encouragement after difficult scenes. Advice offered quietly between takes. Those everyday interactions built a foundation of trust that lasted long after the series ended. As the years passed, audiences saw Kelly Bundy mature from a teenager into a young woman. At the same time, Christina herself was growing up under extraordinary circumstances. While most people experience those years privately, she experienced them with cameras following nearly every professional step she took. That kind of environment could easily become overwhelming. Fortunately, she wasn't navigating it alone. Ed understood something that only experienced performers truly appreciate. Fame is temporary. Reputation lasts much longer. He encouraged professionalism, punctuality, and respect for everyone working on the production, from directors and writers to camera operators and crew members. Those lessons stayed with Christina throughout her career. After Married, with Children ended, she successfully transitioned into films and new television series, earning praise for performances that showcased her versatility far beyond the role of Kelly Bundy. Looking back, it's difficult not to see how those formative years helped prepare her for everything that followed. But perhaps the most remarkable part of their story is this. When the sitcom ended in 1997 after 11 seasons, many expected the cast to drift apart, just as countless television ensembles have done throughout Hollywood history. That isn't what happened. Instead of becoming distant acquaintances who occasionally reunited for anniversary specials, Christina and Ed maintained a genuine friendship. The father-daughter dynamic audiences loved on screen evolved into a lasting personal bond built on mutual respect rather than shared publicity. And years later, when Christina faced one of the greatest challenges of her life, that bond would once again prove just how real it had always been. For many television shows, the final episode is an emotional celebration. Cast members gather for one last curtain call, the audience applauds, and everyone gets the chance to say goodbye. But for the cast of Married, with Children, things didn't happen that way. After 11 successful seasons, the series ended quietly in 1997. There wasn't a grand farewell or a carefully planned finale that wrapped up every storyline. One day, the cast was filming together as they always had. Soon after, production simply stopped. For Christina Applegate, the ending felt strangely incomplete. Imagine spending nearly half of your life with the same group of people. Seeing them almost every day. Celebrating milestones together. Watching one another grow older. Then suddenly, that routine disappears. The sets are dismantled. The costumes are packed away. Everyone moves on to different projects. It's an experience many actors describe as losing a second family. Christina has spoken about how unusual that transition felt. During her teenage years and early 20s, the Married, with Children cast had become a constant part of her everyday life. Leaving that environment wasn't simply changing jobs, it meant leaving behind people who had watched her grow up. Fortunately, some friendships don't end when production wraps. Ed O'Neill was one of those rare people who stayed in touch. Instead of allowing years to create distance, he continued checking in with Christina as both of their careers evolved. Their conversations no longer happened between takes on a television set, but the respect they had built over more than a decade remained exactly the same. Both actors entered exciting new chapters. Christina refused to let herself be remembered only as Kelly Bundy. She accepted challenging roles that showed audiences a completely different side of her acting ability. Whether appearing in comedy films, dramatic television series, or award-winning performances, she proved she was capable of far more than many people expected. Meanwhile, Ed O'Neill experienced another remarkable career revival. Years after playing Al Bundy, he introduced audiences to an entirely different television father. His role as Jay Pritchett on Modern Family became one of the defining sitcom performances of the 21st century. The success surprised many people. It's rare for an actor to become the face of two legendary sitcoms in different generations. But despite his continued success, Ed never forgot where so much of his television journey had begun. Whenever interviewers asked about Married, with Children, he often spoke fondly about the cast, especially Christina. Rather than focusing on ratings or famous episodes, he frequently praised her talent and the actress she had become. That admiration went both ways. Christina has repeatedly described Ed as someone she deeply respected, not only because of his acting ability but because of the example he set as a person. In an industry where stories of ego and conflict often dominate headlines, there's become an example of something refreshingly different. Mutual appreciation, professional respect, and genuine affection. Years passed, yet fans never stopped asking the same question. Would there ever be a reunion? Every few years, rumors surfaced online. Articles speculated that the Bundy family might return. Television anniversaries sparked fresh interviews, and journalists inevitably asked whether the cast would reunite for one more project. The answers were always hopeful but cautious. Schedules were complicated. New commitments had emerged. Time had changed everyone's lives. Still, one thing remained clear. Whenever the cast reunited for interviews or special appearances, the chemistry was still there. The jokes came naturally. The laughter felt effortless. It was obvious that the connection audiences had loved wasn't manufactured for television. It still existed. Then, in 2021, everything changed. Christina Applegate publicly revealed that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, commonly known as MS. The announcement shocked fans around the world. For decades, audiences had watched her energetic performances filled with confidence and physical comedy. Now she was sharing that she faced a chronic neurological disease affecting her daily life. The diagnosis forced her to rethink almost everything. Filming became more difficult. Simple movements required far greater effort. Energy that once seemed limitless suddenly became something she had to carefully manage. Instead of hiding her condition, Christina made a decision that inspired many people. She chose honesty. She openly discussed the emotional impact of the diagnosis. She spoke about grief. She admitted there were days filled with frustration. She explained that accepting such a life-changing illness wasn't something that happened overnight. It was an ongoing process. Fans admired her courage, but those closest to her understood just how challenging the situation truly was. Among the first people to offer support were members of her television family. Ed O'Neill was one of them. Although he has always been known as a private individual, those close to the cast have made it clear that he reached out to Christina with kindness and encouragement. There were no dramatic press conferences. No attempts to gain publicity. Just genuine concern from someone who had cared about her since she was 15 years old. That quiet support meant more than headlines ever could. Sometimes the strongest friendships aren't measured by public gestures. They're measured by who calls when the cameras aren't rolling, who checks in when interviews are over, who remains present when life becomes difficult. For Christina, knowing that her former castmates, and especially Ed, were standing beside her emotionally became another reminder that the family they created decades earlier had never truly disappeared. It had simply changed with time. The years had transformed co-workers into lifelong friends. And once again, Ed O'Neill proved that the qualities Christina admired most about him had never changed. He wasn't just the actor who played her television father. He continued to be someone she could rely on when real life became far more challenging than anything written into a sitcom script.